So for the last 3 weeks, myself and Dave have had the pleasure of riding these two modern classics, the Royal Enfield Continental GT and the Interceptor 650. Now they look different, but they are fundamentally the same bike, same engine, same chassis, same brakes, similar setup. But this one, the Continental GT, has a more cafe racer look, so clip-on swan necks, handlebars, rear set pegs, a slightly more sporty or clubman's feel to it. Whereas this is your traditional roadster, so more comfy, sort of sit up and beg riding position. So of the two, starting with looks, this is the one I prefer. Now normally when you get two bikes, when it's roadster and sportster, it's always the sportier or the sort of clubman's bike that I like the look of. Think of BSA Goldstar DBD34, the clubman's bike is always the better looking one for me. The Marini Sport 3.5 versus the Strada, same, but on this occasion, it's the other way around. I really prefer the styling of this one. I think mainly because the tank is a better shape. I love the chrome on the tank and the finish of the tank, but also the branding as well. This has got these gorgeous sort of proper vintage 50s, 60s style Royal Enfield logos and badges on, whereas the Continental's got a more modern twist with those Transfer R's logos on the side. So for me, I think this is the better looking bike. Good bits about the bike, there are plenty. There are also a few little niggles, so I'll start to go through those now. In terms of performance, well, we're looking around 50 brake horsepower from this 650 twin. And it weighs, wet, about 220 kilos. So performance and weight-wise, it's actually virtually identical to the Black Shadow that I get the pleasure of riding occasionally as well. So they're quite heavy, these modern bikes, compared to the old Brit bikes in comparison. But 50 brake horsepower, not a lot by modern standards, but compared to the 50s and 60s bikes that myself and Dave normally ride, then it's right up there. And actually, the torque that it goes through as you work through the gears and the smoothness that it provides from that parallel twin is absolutely spot on. And I found the performance really, really satisfying and more than enough for me. Handling wise, again, nothing to complain about really. I know these are fairly standard suspension front and rear from a modern point of view, but actually they felt quite competent. Smooth A roads, not a problem obviously, but even on the windy bumpy B roads it felt really comfortable and really secure when you're going along. So again, no complaints there. In terms of sound, well, yeah, it's not too bad, but it could be better for me. It doesn't sound as nice as the classic bikes back in the 50s and 60s, or the original bike that this was based on, which was the 750 Interceptor. It's a little bit subdued, and that's perhaps due to modern regulations. Also, the exhausts are probably a bit too big for my liking. I have read on the internet you can cut down quite a bit of weight also by taking them off and swapping them for aftermarket ones, so that's probably something I would do. There is a little bit of popping on the overrun though, so there's still a bit of character in there, but you have to search a little bit hard to find it. Overall, the riding position on this bike is really nice. The bars are set perfectly, the seat's fairly comfortable. I've done 120 miles in one go on this bike and it felt great when I got off it. The position of the pegs again, and the gear change is fantastic. I was so impressed with the gearbox on this. Having ridden in the last year this sort of T120 New Bonneville as well as the Moto Guzzi V7, I reckon that this gearbox is actually smoother than both of those and easier to engage and get out of the gears and find neutral than either of those two bikes. So absolutely spot on. Few niggles with it, maybe the pegs actually, if you're sat on the bike and you're trying to move the bike forward or whatever, compared to the Continental, these actually get in the way a little bit. Because these are rear set pegs, you can paddle around on the bike a little bit easier on that one. But that is a minor niggle. In terms of the overall finish, well, for the price, I couldn't really fault it. The chrome on the tank is great, pinstripes painting, the overall finish on the welds and the paint on the frame looks really spot on. Polished cases on the engine, nothing to complain about there. I think maybe these brackets here look a little bit cheap, as does the one on the mudguard. And the only thing that really lets it down, does niggle me, is the chrome on the headlight here, which is nowhere near as polished as the one on the tank. And you know, if it costs them another 100, 150 quid to do that, I'd be more than happy to pay it to have a nicer finish on there. Also, I gave my dad the opportunity to have a ride on both of these bikes.
Standard.
He's had classic bikes for the last 50 years, so he's 74, nearly 75. He really enjoyed this bike. When it was on the move, found it really comfortable, easy to use, not intimidating in any way, and really took him back to some of the bikes he had when he was younger in the 50s and 60s. But weight, that was the thing for him. So, you know, he's cracking on a little bit now. He found it fine on the move, he was comfortable, but moving it around on his driveway, wheeling it in and out of the garage, it was probably, what, 25, 30 kilos too much. So that was his only negative on this, and he found it a little bit of a struggle. But overall, he was so impressed with what you get for the money in terms of its performance, its refinement. So he was very pleased with it from that point of view. So would this be the bike that you'd want in your garage alongside your classics? Well, for me, in particular, the Interceptor, absolutely. It's got the looks, it would sit beautifully alongside bikes from the 50s, 60s or 70s, but it would give you that comfort and the reliability that maybe your classics might not always do. There's always that bit of anxiety when you go out on one of these old bikes that if you're doing a long journey, you might suck the plug up, or the magneto might start to fail and you might need to do some mechanicals along the way or hitch your lift back. You're not going to get any anxiety like that with one of these. It's just going to be ultra reliable, get you there, get you back, and have that classic look and feel about it. And also, no anxiety about the price, because what, £6,500 these are on the road, compared to many modern bikes, which are what, 10, 11, 12,000 pounds in this class. You're not going to be losing loads of money when you drive it off the forecourt of your local dealer. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, although the engine and chassis and the output and ride of these bikes is the same, from an ergonomic point of view, the comfort and the visual point of view, the aesthetics of this one is absolutely the one I would go for. It's the Interceptor, and I think as an accompaniment to the classic bikes that I already have in the garage, then it would be spot on.
Right, so here we are today, and we've got the GT Continental, and we got this side, we got the Interceptor 650. Now they're both brilliant bikes. Now I'm probably a bit biased, but this one, I rode this one first and I was absolutely really impressed with it. I've just made a few comments, so it makes it short for you. Basically, excellent build, brilliant quality, clean lines, uncluttered controls. When we look at things like controls, we look at switchgear, because when we're riding, you've got your glove on, you don't want anything that's too complicated. All we've got here really is we've got a high beam flash, you've got your dip, and you've got your indicator, which you press it in the centre, it cancels. Then we've got the horn. One negative thing, and I don't usually criticise things, and there's nothing really wrong with it, I just found this a little bit plasticky really. It's just something that, whether it's going to stand up the test of time, but it's just a nitpicking thing. It's just a little bit. But I really did like this. The clocks are lovely, the old style, slightly low position, which would suit me because riding the Gold Star gives you that impression still. The tank is a nice shape, your knees fit into the tank nicely. The seat's comfortable, it's very easy to ride. Basically, the gear change, 6-speed gearbox, is silky smooth, really lovely. And the power from that engine, you can't fault it. I mean, it's got 650cc capacity there. It's more than ample. You know, it will keep up with modern traffic. If you want to accelerate past any vehicles on the dual carriageway, it's got plenty of grunt. You don't need to upgrade this in capacity really. It does what it says. It's a capable bike. It's more than enough power for most people. The only criticism I did have, other than the switchgear, I think this is really more designed for a solo ride. I had my partner sit on the back, and the seat on this, it does tend to slope back, and it does take you back towards the grab rail at the back. It does slope off. I think I'm not sure if it's available, but because of the style of this bike, it would look quite nice with a hump on the back of this, actually. It is more of a solo ride bike. But I was really, really impressed. It's so stable, it's easy to ride, and yeah, it's got a lovely exhaust sound. You know, everything is right about this, but most of all, the build quality for that price is amazing. You can't fault it. Then we come over to the next one, the Interceptor 650. Same engine, same sort of power, obviously. I don't think there's any difference in the tuning. But what I like about this, I do like the chrome tank, slightly bigger capacity tank, and the high bars. Now, this is a bit of a sort of a trial sort of look about it. Actually, the brace on here, it's quite smart. It gives that quite nice appearance. But to ride, this gives you that nice sit-up ride position. Very similar to riding, really, the A65, which is an American spec bike with the high bars, but this has got a lot more go than that. And you know, with that 6-speed gearbox, it just cruises along nicely. You drop it down a gear and it picks up instantly. The fuel injection, they've got that spot on. I was very impressed with that. Starting from cold, it gives you slightly higher RPM when it starts up, and that cuts back, but there's no fault to that, there's no lag. Clutch control, very easy. Yeah, it's a brilliant bike. I can't really praise it enough. In fact, I like it that much, I actually would like to buy one of these. It just suits me. I think there's a lot of people my age in their 60s who would say, do you know what, that really does suit me now. You want to get away from the sports bikes, or you've had stuff like I've got with kickstarts, and maybe you'll find it a bit of a problem starting bikes. This electric start, you can live with this a lot longer than you could maybe with something like that. Also, it's new. You know, we like the old bikes, but sometimes a lot of us want to do a few more miles. We tend to ride the old bikes only so far. You could quite happily jump on this, ride up to Scotland. Whereas a lot of people always go, oh, an older bike like that, the classic, it's hard work. The thing about this, it will keep cool. It's got the oil's cooled through an oil cooler at the front. So the engine's going to benefit from good cooling. It's got a filter. So the bike is designed to run in modern traffic, and if you're snowed up in traffic and you're stationary, you've got a filter. The clutch can cope with it, it's easy to ride, the balance is good. Okay, so ride position. Now, my feet are well planted on the ground. It's got a nice centre of balance to it. It's quite a high seat, but it's not too high. So if you're anything about like 5'10", 5'11", you can be well planted. Handlebars. With the higher bars, it does give that nice ride. You know, it's very, very comfortable. The big tank, it just feels right. There's something you can do. I mentioned that it's got ample power, but there is an upgrade, and it's done by a company that will do aftermarket parts. You can put a cam in here, change the camshaft, it would give you instantly 10 horsepower more power. And there are companies, as we know, that will do the big bore conversions. You don't need to spend a lot of money. I think you could be spending thousands on a big bore conversion. Change the camshaft, you're probably looking at about £150, 10 horsepower more. So a lot of people will say it's underpowered. I don't think it is. I think for me it's just spot on as it is. But just saying, if you feel you want to do an upgrade, a bit more, you can do it. Now for £6,500, you can't better that, can you, for a motorcycle of this build quality? It really is superb. But this, to me, I think out of the two bikes, this suits me the most. You know, it's just a great bike. So, Continental GT, the difference. Straight away, lower bars. Feels more like clip-ons, but we call these like ace bars normally. Slightly lower, so it gives that slightly sporty feel to it. Now the tank, because there's cutaway in the tank, I put my knee up here, it does encourage you to tuck your knees in. It's a nice ride position. And the seat is slightly different cutaway, the seat on this. The foot pegs, these are actually further back. If you look at where the frame V is here, you'll see that's dead in the centre. When we look at the Interceptor, it's quite forward, probably about 3 inches. So it gives you that tucked back ride position. This is such a good bike to chuck into a corner, and it just holds a road. You never feel, it feels like it's on rails. It really does hold the road well. And I think the price of this is very, very similar. They're both much the same on price, about the 6.5. Right, okay, what I love about both these bikes, we'll talk about the GT first. The first thing, colour. I love that colour in British Racing Green. But most of all, look at the lines. We always look at a bike, the engine's got to be the heart of the bike. Nothing here is covered up. It's got lovely lines. It just looks so right. The proportions are right. It's got that proper old British look about it, but it's a modern engine. But it is quite similar to the Constellation that it made years ago. But it's just the exhaust system. Everything is neat and tidy. Now, a lot of times we look at controls and we look at cables. There is nothing cluttered. Everything is nicely sort of, it's not over cluttered with cables and bits and bobs. It's all tucked away nicely. It's got clean lines. I really love that, and that first impression. And looking at this side, usually bikes have one side that's better than the other, but you look at that side with this primary chain case cover, polished, and you know, the nice look of the cylinder head, the barrel. And here, another thing, we've got the rocker box cover. That's another thing. When the tank's off, this cover comes off and you've got easy valve adjustment, tappet adjustment. It's just literally not shimmed, it's just slacking off a nut, adjusting with a feeler gauge. So very simple. Here's a nice little feature. We have the toolbox here, it's keyed, which is quite good. Use ignition. We use ignition key here, and to access here, just turn the lock, and we've got 2 rubbers here. We just pull that away like that. And in here, which is very nice actually, we actually get a bike that's got a toolkit. So in here, let's open this one up. Actually, it's been out. Now, how often do you get a bike with a toolkit these days? That's something you used to get years ago and we don't get now. So you've got the tool in here to make adjustment to your rear preset on your shock, your preload. But we've got various other tools here for taking spark plugs out, screwdriver, Allen keys, and that is so nice to have. You know, you can go out, and if you do have a situation where you need to do any work, you've got tools with you. So nice little feature. Something that had disappeared over the years, and I'm glad to see that Royal Enfield give you that that toolkit, so you can actually get yourself out of trouble. But looking round at the other side of the bike, I'll put that back on in a moment. This side is the same as the other side. Very pleasing. This reminds me, like, you know, your timing case cover on a Triumph. You know, it's feature. You know, and it's the fuel injection, the way they've covered it up. It's great. They haven't tried to mimic anything there. It's fuel injection. They put a nice little cover on there. The thing I like about both these bikes, okay, we do have a bit of plastic, but it's plastic in the right places. It feels solid. Doesn't feel like it's been overdone with a lot of mouldings that are plastic. It's solid bike, and you know, the materials they used are well finished off, and yeah, it's got build quality. It does look really good. We got the I can't remember the name, but we got the sensor here for the cat, but it's all concealed. It's not sticking out, and you know, it's not looking at you in the face. It's all covered up, and it's where it should be. But it's a brilliant piece of machinery, really is. And look at the frame. You know, the quality of the welds on the frame. There's no tackiness here at all. Nicely finished off framework. All the welds are really nicely finished, and the paint is good too. Okay, so we've taken the toolbox out, which was in the tray here, and this is the adjusting tool for the preload on the spring on the rear shocks. Now, the guy that was riding this was a lot bigger than me, a good 6'6", and weighed a bit more than me, so he had it up in a fairly stiff position. Now, people know how to do this, but it's quite straightforward. Just hook this in. It's only like a hook spanner, and you just literally just turn that, and it gives you a progression of tension on this spring. I've just taken the compression off a little bit, and it's straightforward. I'll just put that back to where it was. When you do it this way, it's a little bit harder, obviously, because we've got to go around. Okay, we're going to start the bike up, and I'm just going to point a few things out which are really good features. Kill switch, just turn this on. Now when you start from cold, just keeps the revs up a little bit, which is good, because it's not going to stall on you. Now, the biggest feature with this parallel twin, now people mostly know about this, engines these days have synchrobalance shafts, counterbalance shafts in the engine. What it does, when you have a crankshaft rotating, you get a certain amount of vibration. When they put a balance shaft in, that smooths that out. Now, if you was to put your hand on that engine when you start it up, you can feel it. This, you can't even feel it's running. It's so smooth. When I rev it, there's just absolutely nothing there. It's almost like a rotary engine. It's so smooth, no vibration. Exhaust note from these cans. I mean, they're standard cans, and people will put aftermarket ones on, but I think that's got a nice sound to it. If I just tweak that now, just cancel the indicator out. And being a swept-back pipe, it's a little bit like the Commando. But it's really nice. It's when you pull away at a junction, you get that lovely tautness. You know, it's like the brake pedal is fine, but it's a little bit weak looking, but it does the job. You've got your slave cylinder here. It does the job okay. But yes, it really is nice. I mean that, but it will slow down that tick over. Both bikes have got a side stand, but this has got a main stand. I think it's an option. It goes up very easily. It's got a nice place to put your foot. It's got your handle here. It lifts up nicely. So any maintenance you want to do to your bike, cleaning, and obviously when it's in the garage, it's a little bit more secure if it's up on the main stand as well. I mentioned about the timing case cover here, which has a drive for the starter motor, and we got the crankshaft and we got the gear drive for the camshaft, rest of it. But what's quite nice here is this gives the appearance of a pre-unit separate gearbox, although this is an outer cover, but it's not all made as one. It's broken this bit up, and we've got the chain drive behind here, but it gives that a nice feature. I think that's really nice. The gear change linkage is underneath here, but what a nice finish. It's polished aluminium. It really is nicely finished. And what's nice, they use Allen screws instead of crosshead screws. And also the crankcase, and the casting is nicely finished off. You know, there's no bad castings. Everything's been nicely preserved. It's got a nice coating there, like a white paint. It's really good. Okay, just talk about the brakes. Now the brakes are brilliant. You've got a single disc on the front, which is more than sufficient. Big disc, good sized caliper. But what is quite nice, and it has only got one thing on here. It hasn't got traction control, but it's got ABS. You don't need traction control. ABS is brilliant because if it is wet, or if you're starting to get that breakaway, you've got your sensor here. It's a good idea. So we've got ABS on the front brake and also on the back brake. Same setup, but a good safe feature to have. But it doesn't have rain modes and one of those sort of things. And I always feel all these things are great on bikes, but sometimes I feel they're overcomplicated, and if they go wrong, it costs a lot of money to get them sorted out. This is pure riding experience. This is down to you. You're riding the bike. It's got the refinement of nice controls, easy clutch, easy throttle movement, and a lovely smooth engine. But you ride the bike. It's not doing it for you. But the ABS is a good thing to have. Come to warning devices. Now, the horn, use it because it's loud. And I think if you're filtering or you're going through busy areas or around country lanes, you listen to this. They're going to hear you coming. I think the majority of people that will buy one of these will do their own servicing after they had the initial warranty work done. And to do your servicing really is straightforward. You know, to take the tank off, we know we've got fuel injection, so there'll be some pipes underneath here which are probably on quick release anyway. But to make any adjustment to the tappets I mentioned earlier, the whole cover comes off similar to the A65, and then it will expose your valve gear. You can do your tappet adjustment, and we know it's done with feeler gauge. There are no shims, it's just adjustment. So that's straightforward. Changing your plugs, you can't be easier than this really, very simple. But to do the oil change, obviously heat the engine up, and to drop the oil out the crankcase, we have an oil filter on the front, easy to get to. Nothing's covered up, so it's very straightforward. Chain adjustment on the back, the swing arm here, spindle, one nut the other side, locking nut each side to pull the wheel adjuster back. Basic, very, very straightforward. You know, that's how, similar to this, straightforward servicing, nothing complicated. So the time factor working on this to do a service is not going to be long. Okay, so I've had this one for a few days, and as I said to you, I've thoroughly enjoyed riding it. Now, I took it out to the local pub last night, only had a pint, and the amount of people came up to me and looked at the bike and was very impressed. They looked at it and could see it wasn't Japanese straight away. It's got that proper look about it, you know, British bike, Royal Enfield, and it's a name that a lot of people do know of. And one person came up to me and he said to me, well, this was actually in the workshop yesterday, he said, oh, I like that, it's a good bike. I said, well, sit on the bike. And he said, do you know what, my dad would really like one of those. I said, well, they are affordable. And he was blown away when I told him about the price. Another chap came along, and I'm doing a Scott for him actually. And I said, what do you think of this, Richard? And he said, yeah, it's nice. I said, how much do you reckon it costs? And he said, it's got price tag £10,000. I said, well, you weigh out 6.5. And that's what I'm saying. It has a look of a bike that's much higher price than what it is. It's very compatible with other bikes out there, and I'm not going to mention names, but it does stand up there with the rest of those. So if you're looking at one of the others, don't miss this, because they've come a long way. I mean, the Bullet was a good bike and still is a good bike, but I'll tell you what, when this 650 came out, they spent a lot of time before they got this out to make sure it was right, and they've done their homework. And it hasn't had any negativity spoken about it at all. Everyone praises this bike, and I'm, you know, very into my British bikes, and I certainly would like one of these. This would be the model for me, definitely, with slightly higher bars. I've got bikes with lower bars, and it's quite nice to have your girlfriend, your partner on the back, just poodle out on a Sunday. Use it as a work bike in the week, and that's what I would do. I'll probably put a rack on the back and just use it as everyday bike and look after it. To me, yeah, it's sold itself to me, and I think a lot of people should try it.